obviously getting ready for South Dakota and have to defend the 3 tomorrow night. And, it's a really well coached team, executes really well. They play really hard, they cut hard, and obviously the stats tell everybody what a great 3-point shooting team they have.
Questions?
Is Hagedorn kind of a Vanover version? Is big guy that shoots threes or different type player?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing with Tyler is he can post up a little bit too. It's not just pick and roll, pop type stuff. You switch, he'll roll into the post a little bit. He's a really good basketball player. I mean, he can shoot the ball. He's a 5th-year player, so he's an older, veteran type guy. They have 5 seniors on their team, and it shows in how they played on the road. It's not easy, like everybody on the West Coast knows, playing at Hawaii is really, really difficult, especially in their own tournament. And they went in there and won that tournament, which doesn't happen often. And then they won 2 neutral games there, so they've been away from home 3 of their 5 games, and they got some really. Cody Kelly, we played against at Nevada when he was at Wyoming. He's a really tough kid, and you're talking about a basketball team that has 3 all-league players in the preseason. Most valuable player in the league in Stanley Mude. So they present a lot of problems.
Hey, you and Todd Lee, I guess, go way back. I used to say you guys met in San Diego, and you asked him if he wanted to come back to his home state coach. What do you remember about those CBA days? You told me there was some ref that had it in for you and teed you up real quick, ejected you, and you sat high up in the stands and sent notes down to the bench with a trainer. I'm just wondering, how do you describe your relationship? What do you remember about those wild, crazy CBA days, I guess?
Yeah, Todd's lifetime friend. Obviously, we worked together in Rapid City, with the Thrillers, and had some great teams with a lot of stories. Surprised to remember that one. But he, just a guy that's, we talk basketball all the time. Everywhere he's been, they've won. When he was at Irvine as an assistant, they won. When he was at Cal State Bakersfield, they won. I thought he did a great job with Coach Marley. When I was at Arizona State, actually, he was at Grand Canyon, so we were in the same city in Phoenix, and did a lot of stuff together. And Coach Marley thinks the world of him, and he's just a really, really good, fundamentally basketball coach. His teams play smart, they play hard, they play tough.
Coach, what have you seen from South Dakota's perimeter defense?
Yeah, I think from a defensive standpoint, they're really solid. They don't get out and try to create a lot of turnovers. They're just well coached in their schemes. They're not going to gamble. They're not going to reach. They're not going to get out of position. They give great help. They're a high take-a-charge team. They'll stand in the way of dribble drive penetrations and try to take charges. But they're just a kind of a semi-flat-line defensive team that they're not going to try to play tricks with you. They are who they are defensively, and they do what they do really well.
Does he 0 for 16 from 3 this season? And obviously he showed last year that he's a pretty good, solid 3-point shooter. Where's his confidence at right now?
Well, he's taking 16 shots. He lets it fly. So I would say his confidence is pretty high. And with any player, the only thing you want is just worry about the next shot. Don't worry about what happened 3 or 4 shots before. It's the same if you're making shots. You can only worry about once you catch the ball, and he's getting his reps up, which is all you can ask. And hopefully the lid will come off from 3 tomorrow night.
Seth?
You said that you talked to Coach Jones after the game. What insights did he give you on your team?
Yeah, so I actually talked to Brandon Chambers and Derek Syak from both on the Texas Southern. They gave us some great stuff. They went through personnel, 1 through 8 basically, 1 through 9 on our team, and told us some of their thoughts and told us where they thought our holes were. Both those guys, because they have, we worked together in the past. They said, hey, we thought maybe trap a little bit more in the backcourt, and you know, they felt like we did a good job isolating poor defenders on their own roster. So it was, you know, and then we shared a bunch of stuff with them as well.
Coach, I think Mason sat like the final 13 plus minutes the other night. Just what went into the decision to sit him?
Yeah, just you know, focus. Felt like he needed to be a little bit more focused on both ends of the floor and from defensive assignment stuff, and then the team's playing well, and so when you're playing well, sometimes you roll with those guys. Well, not sometimes, I'm always going to roll with whoever's playing well, and whoever's playing with a ton of energy and a lot of enthusiasm.
I guess back when you guys were with the Thrillers, I mean, teams weren't affiliated with NBA teams like they are now, and Todd was saying you knew literally where every player was in the world, like Italy, Greece, Spain, you know, every NBA guy, every season. So, because you guys had a lot of roster movement, what was that like when you could lose guys to the NBA team? Is, you know, did they decide whoever I guess they wanted?
Yeah.
You know, what was that like in that kind of crazy roster situation?
No, Todd's right. I mean, I think one year, Bob, we had 61 players. I remember getting a phone call at maybe like 4:30 in the morning from the Rapid City Airport. They said 3 of your guys are at the airport, and 2 of them were going to Italy and 1 was going to Spain. It was our 3 best players. They had all gotten pretty good lucrative deals and left, and the other guy we had suspended, Wes Matthews, the day before for the upcoming game. So that put us at, I think we had 6 guys that night because our roster was already at 9 instead of 10. And the game went into overtime. We played Henry Bibby's team, and one of our guys fouled out, which meant Wes, who was suspended, was in uniform. And so I had to put a suspended player in the game. And I think he had like 11 straight points in overtime, hadn't suited up, hadn't played a second up until that moment, but that's how talented Wes Matthews was. I think that was one of the teams that Todd was with. But it was, you know, back then, you know, there was no buyouts and stuff with players, you know, going overseas or coming back, and so you'd have to know which guys were unhappy in which countries, or you had to understand which countries didn't pay. And then you had to know which countries, from a roster standpoint, were non-patient. You know, a U.S. player, American player would go over there in some countries and have 2 bad games and get sent home. And so it was just a constant game of connections with overseas agents and agents in the U.S. that you know, would tell you what was going on from a revolving door with players.
And what team did Henry Bibby coach?
Oklahoma City Cavalry.
Coach, Mason said that he likes you getting on him and the consistency that you bring when you get on him. How did he respond this week after you didn't play him in the final minutes?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Nicky, just like any player, you know, that he would, you know, he'd love to play as many minutes as possible, which means 40 minutes. But he's been great. He and I talked yesterday after practice, and you know, now that he's, you know, 4 games into his junior year, you know, we need leadership from him, not just to be a good player. Obviously, he is a good player. We all know that. You know, I think the next step in his progress is to become a leader, and you know, that's part of our job as coaches. That, you know, there's a lot of people that say, well, this guy's a natural born leader and all that. Well, yes, some guys are. I think that that's true. But then there's other guys that, you know, with nurturing and talking to them, and you know, you got to explain, you know, what the true meaning of leadership is. And a lot of these guys are still learning stuff. So as I'm still learning too.
It got announced yesterday that Gabe Osaboyan's waiver at West Virginia got granted, so he's got immediate eligibility. I was curious your reaction to that, especially in relation to the fact that Connor didn't get his waiver.
Yeah, I mean, to me, they're just, you know, they're two separate things. I mean, we're happy for Gabe. You know, it's awesome that he's able to play, and you know, my time around him, really enjoyable to be around. Now Connor's situation, I mean, it's I won't be able to understand it from now until whenever, because again, I've had other players in the past that have transferred and have gotten immediate eligibility. But a lot of that too, you know, it's a lot of it's in the hands of, you know, like our administration, you know, and how you respond to Gabe's stuff and all that, and our people handled it the way it should be, which is you know, do right by the student athlete, and you know, certainly feel like that's what our administration did with Gabe. And again, we're really happy that he's playing because obviously, you know, he wanted to play right away, and I think that that's great for him as a player.
What were some of your takeaways from Reggie's debut, you know, after going back and watching the tape?
Yeah, I thought Reggie was really good from a energy standpoint. You know, he's unique. You know, when you're running sets and stuff, and he's on the scout team, you're always worried because you're adding new plays, and we try to add a new play to start every game, and we'll continue to do that. So I've been kind of worried with him being out where he would be from an execution standpoint, but he's one of those guys that, you know, you're not sure how much he's paying attention, and then when he goes out and executes, he seems to always be in the right place, which is, you know, he's got this innate ability to kind of figure out where he should be and to have good spacing, and I thought he was really good for us. You know, I think his wind, you know, that's going to get better and better with each game, so we'll kind of have to watch how long his minutes are. You know, he might not be a guy that plays 12 straight minutes, so to speak. He might be a guy that a little bit more short bursts of minutes until he gets his wind exactly where it needs to be.
Well, you know, Isaiah, I guess he was tweeting the Montana game the first half against Texas Southern. He was 3 and 19. Pretty uncharacteristic, but he said, and I know you said the other night, you're never going to tell him not to shoot. I guess, what does that say about a guy that he stays confident and doesn't let, you know, kind of a rough game and a half get to him?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, you know, with all shooters, whether it's an NBA player, whether it's a college player, whether it's a high school player, you know, there's a lot of guys that'll go through, you know, stretches. You know, kind of Isaiah's was that, you know, first half of the last game, and then, you know, the game before, you know, like, so he had a little bit of an extended period of a slump, a game and a half or whatever, and then he just broke out of it. We need him to shoot. Like, anytime he's open, if he passes up an open shot, that hurts us, for sure. Even if he's missed, you know, 5 or 6 in a row, we can ill afford to have him ever pass up a wide open shot. Same with Mason. I mean, both those guys, when they're open, they've got to take the shot, even if it's a shot that doesn't go in.
Do the answer, Coach. Nate, did you want to answer? Hey, I remember watching a video when you first got hired. You told the guys, it had to be one of your first or second meetings with them, that you're going to get detailed NBA type scouting reports, and the guys have all talked about that. Are you giving them the same scouting reports essentially you gave NBA players, and is that divided among the staff? Or I know Clay's obviously got a heavy scouting background. Who is the main guy on your staff that handles scouting?
Yeah, as far as the scouting goes, we do every third game basically is a different assistant's responsible. You know, I think it's part of we just don't want one guy doing the scouts, so they've been divided up at the beginning of the year who has which teams, and yeah, it's the same prep work that we had at the NBA level. Stuff we do on the floor, stuff that they get on paper, stuff that they get texted, video clips that they get on our opposing team, and then, you know, I take part in all of them, and you know, I meet with Coach Ruda and Coach Hayes, you know, and my son Michael and Pat, you know, those four, and myself, because we've been together. We're kind of, you know, there's this group here, and then there's the scout coach. Because I do it with those other guys every game. We kind of huddle up, and the scout coach puts together a game plan, and then you know, we go with basically what the scout coach has, and then we alter, you know, little things that maybe we've done in the past. Try to come up with a theme every game. Usually something funny. You know, it was a race car one game because we talked about how slow North Texas played, and so we showed, it was a little bit longer than what I wanted, but Coach Mosier showed a speed racing video just to try to get in their minds, hey, this is what we want to do. We got to play fast. We got to play with speed this game. So every game's got its own little theme too, to try to help them. And then each opposing player usually gets a nickname or gets a cartoon character or something to try to help our guys understand who that particular player is. One night it can be Batman and Robin. Another guy could have like the Energizer Bunny because he's a guy who runs around and gets loose balls and stuff like that. Another guy might be Elmer's glue guy because he's got sticky fingers and won't pass the ball. So we try to come up with little catchphrases just to try to help our guys remember opposing players as easy as possible.
Well, what do you thought about, because NBA players are older, what do you thought about your guys' ability to absorb detailed scouting reports?
I've been stunned and shocked at their ability to execute detailed game plans. I really have been. It's been one of the, at Nevada, it kind of built up over time. Our first year, we just spent so much time on defense that I kind of let the offense figure itself out because I knew we had to defend, and we stunk so bad offensively that I knew the only way we could survive is to try to defend. But we're pretty detailed right now for 4 games in, offensively and defensively. We've got a lot of plays in, got a lot of defensive schemes, and then you add in the scouting report. I've been like shocked at how well they pick things up, because I thought it would take till maybe a year into this thing when they really started understanding our terminology and stuff. But they've been locked in, and we practiced, instead of just doing skill development in the summer. I mean, we had practices instead of like 3-man groups. So I think that helped as well.
All right, Coach, thanks very
Thanks.
much.